Get ready for some real, honest conversation. I'm your host, Camilla. Grab your coffee, tea, or whatever's in your cup, have a seat, and let's talk about it.
He's like, I don't see you as like a TED Talk kind of person. I see you as sitting on a stage and people asking you questions. He's
Mhm.
like, you've got so much in your head. Where do you begin? And that's always been my problem. Where do I begin?
Yeah.
Not, right? Like, so
Have you
yeah,
ever thought about like writing a book?
I have thought about several books actually. I had started a book some years ago. Um, and my Reiki master talks to me about the YouTube and the writing the books. And you know what it is? It's time.
Mhm.
It's time, carving out that time to put it together. And a lot of my content would be prior to this day, might have been too early, right?
Mm.
I'm finding I'm now in that time and space in that realm where people are open and even seeking the kind of content I could offer them.
Yeah.
So
It makes
that,
me think of David Icke when he started coming out with his information. So, like, way back, what was that? 90s, maybe even earlier. And then people just completely shut him down. And it's now, I don't know, maybe the last like 10 or 15 years that his information is being accepted and they're looking at him differently compared to way back when, right? So it's kind of like that. Really,
yeah,
yeah.
I've really been walking like kind of a on thin ice, right? Because at the height of everything coming together for me, I was going through a very ugly, violent divorce.
Mhm.
And I had to be really careful of how much I shared because sharing too much would have given somebody, you know, ammunition to use against me as
Mhm.
a well mother. So it was kind of needing to discern how much I could share, what I could share, and how much I needed to be silent on what I was moving through and what I was picking up and learning. And it's really been, a journey of quiet until it was time to really let my voice be heard. And we're in that time now where people are seeking, they're seeking that intuitiveness, that intuitive intelligence. They're seeking people who've been doing this for, I've been this way all my life, most intentionally since 2009. But when I look back now, this is who I've always been. And people are now getting ready to acknowledge that and to witness the fact that the intuitiveness that we all have, it's now time to bring it on board,
Right.
right? It's time to step into it. And who are you going to turn to? Are you going to turn to people who are just moving through it now? Or are you going to turn to the people who were stepping into it before it was the it thing, right? Now,
Yeah.
I'm my kids kind of look at I'm not as woo woo to my kids anymore, which is kind of cool, right? I'm
And
sure that
yeah. And I'm finding that with like even conversations with other people that um, they're starting to accept that there might be something bigger going on out there than just this reality that we live in, that they're starting to accept that, oh yeah, maybe the energies of the cosmos or the universe, whatever you want to call it, actually do affect us and when the planets move in and out and all that kind of stuff, like there, I'm finding that more and more it's becoming like prominent that it's, oh yeah, this is a thing and there's more out there than just what's in front of us, right?
yeah, and we've been programmed to be so evidence-based. This work isn't evidence-based.
Hmm.
This is that knowing in your soul, that intuitive intelligence that moves you forward. And because now the evidence that we're starting to see can't be trusted, people are seeking another trusted source. And if many of us have been living our lives listening to the guidance and trusting our intuitive knowing, hmm, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
People are starting to recognize that, and it's fabulous, to watch people growing into themselves. Someone watched me do it, so it's exciting to watch other people now moving into this, even when they are not sure why, right? They're starting to see patterns or see synchronicities and recognize that those things don't just happen by circumstance. They're actually happening for a reason,
Mhm.
right? Turning to, we can gather so much information now from all different kinds of social platforms that there's so many people saying similar things. To think that it isn't a true existence is now becoming commonplace, which I love, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So with that said, do you want to give like a summary of what it is that you do?
What are you thinking?
Well, kind of like a introduction to Charlotte. So you have obviously like your life journey, you've been through a lot, which we can dive into as much as you want or not, up to you. And then how that shaped um, where you've stepped in and like and how you help and show up for other people nowadays.
Okay. All right. Um, oh gosh, it's such a loaded question, right? It's where do I begin? I was that strange kid. I was that kid who had make-believe friends. I was that kid who could sense and feel other people. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. I was always told that my imagination was going to get the better of me, that I needed to stop daydreaming, that I was too sensitive and I was too emotional. And now when I look back, all those sensitivities weren't necessarily my own, but I didn't know that at the time. So I kind of, always felt like I was on the outside and misunderstood. And we hear that story all the time from people who are, having a very similar journey to my own. Um, and not knowing it, when I look back now, I was certainly picking up on messages and guidance from spirit and feeling spirit. And I can remember being 10 years old in my aunt's backyard in Tala, Ireland, and making my way to go to the bathroom and being stopped with these fairies dancing around in my head. And I was so excited. I went into the house to tell my mom, and my mom's reaction was, don't talk crazy. You can't say those things around our family. They'll think we have a crazy daughter. And I can remember in that moment shutting everything off and never wanting to feel that way again. And I'm sure if I look back at my time period from 10, so that's 1984, to my brother's illness in 2009, there were lots of messages that were coming in during that time period, but I wasn't paying attention. I had shut down who I was as a child because I needed to fit in. I needed to kind of move into the normal realms, if we can call it that. And when my brother got sick in 2009, everything came back with a vengeance. I was hearing things, I was seeing things, I was hearing messages about his illness. Not sure if it was my fear of what he was going through. And as he progressed through his journey, he walking between two worlds, on his deathbed was actually able to see who I was
Mm.
at the core and the soulness of who I was. And I didn't understand the messages he was coming back with. And, when he would ask me to help him, I thought he was needing, more morphine, or he was needing a hot washcloth or a cold washcloth. And his incessant, help me. Today I understand what he was asking of me. Back then I didn't, because I didn't know who I was. But
Mm.
he was able to see both his sister and the medicine woman that was going to be emerging. So it was a very interesting time in trying to decipher his messages and what he was bringing forward, and kind of the putting me on the spot to share with my family, instances where he was coming to meet me at night. His soul was traveling to me and asking me to um, ask family members to do things. And it was almost like he was bringing me forward to my family and outing me as to who I was. Of course, I didn't understand it at the time. So 3 years, less a day to his diagnosis, I too was diagnosed.
Mm.
And that was probably my biggest awakening for me, where I needed to come to understand what it was I had missed or I had done that led me to that diagnosis of third stage melanoma. And in that moment of hearing that diagnosis, my response was, yeah, that's not the prognosis that's going to come forward.
Mm.
You don't know me, you don't know my body, you don't know what I'm capable of. And I spent a lot of time really trying to figure out what could have invited such anger into my life, into my body. And I literally had 2 days to figure things out. I was diagnosed on the 27th of July of 2012, and that was a Friday. And the Monday, I was going into court to give evidence against my ex for domestic violence and uttering death threats. And in those bookends of Saturday and Sunday, I needed to discover how I was going to help myself through this diagnosis. And what came to me in meditation was that I had been giving love to someone who didn't want it. I had been trying to save someone who I wasn't entitled to save. That was his journey. And in doing that, I had abandoned my own self-love. I had stepped away from giving myself what I needed. So in those 2 days, what really came very clear to me was self-love was going to be the vibration that I needed to step into in order to stay here earthside to raise my children. So I had a conversation with myself, and it was literally like, self, I love you. And you know what, Cancer, I love you too. So teach me my lesson and go. In those moments, I recognized that if I took anger or fear and directed it towards the Cancer, I was only going to create more of that within my body. But if I could take love and direct it towards the Cancer, I had the opportunity to change the outcome.
Mm.
And that's exactly what I did. So, if one thing I've come to understand on this whole journey, it all begins with self-love. And the minute we can step into that vibration of love, we can change anything, but we have to be in alignment with it. We can't just say we love it. We have to believe it, we have to speak it, and we have to do it. And that's the key, is once we can come into alignment, every door will open. And that's where my journey begins. Truly, I look back at my children. they played into my journey, things I needed to change in order to be the best mom that I could. Um, but for me, the biggest catalyst was my brother's illness and my illness, the dis-ease, a body not at ease. I needed to find how to put this body back at ease. I can remember being on the operating table on September 11th. So I have my own 911, and I knew that that was going to be a really important day. And as I was being put under with the oxygen mask, and I could see my brother beside me, the room had filled with angels and guides. And I remember having a conversation with Creator, and I just said, save me so I can raise my children, and I will do your work, no questions asked. Here I am. Here I am, that was 2012. In 2019, the lawyer I was working for, we were 20 years in his practice together. He became a judge. And right there and then, I heard my guide step forward and say, "You're not accepting any more legal positions.
Mm.
We're going to stop this and open up your own practice." That was a big ask, put me on the spot from, a paycheck coming in to being here and doing this work. I had learned throughout the years well enough that the guidance I was receiving was moving me in positive directions, that not to take that guidance would be detrimental to myself.
Mhm.
So I did it. I walked away from a 27-year law career and I stepped into full-time service for humanity. Um, Today I sit back and I look at all the work that I've done. 2011, I stepped into Reiki, which was the door that opened me up to the metaphysical and the quantum realm. Having survived the melanoma diagnosis in 2013, I heard the call to step onto the shamanic path. And once I stepped on, I recognized what my brother was saying to me. I recognized what he was asking of me. And one of the forms of medicine that I studied was psychopomp. And psychopomp is the walking of the soul from here to transition. And it was in that moment that I sat in that first teachings that I recognized my brother asking me for help was actually him asking me to help him cross.
Mm.
He was able to see who I was. I didn't yet know who I was. So if I look back, the biggest catalyst was my brother, for sure. He was definitely a very important role in this journey. My children, my own health,
Mhm.
moving through all of the experiences that Creator has put me through, I understand. In order for me to sit in this space and sit in this chair, I have to have had the experiences that I've had to cultivate the empathy that's required for me to sit and meet with others and be able to support them on their own journeys. You can be guaranteed that those who come through my door are people who are moving through that which I've already moved through. So that makes me a really great ally and a great guide to be on this journey with them. I'm not here to interfere. I'm not here to change free will. I'm here to plant seeds. I'm here to help those who are wanting to step onto the path to discover their own intellectual intelligence, their own intuition, intelligence, to be able to help themselves. Um, and I bring it back to self-love,
Mm.
right? After me, you come first. First, I've got to take care of me. And once I can do that and get me settled, then it's you. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't be there for anyone. We really have to move now in these times into that space of self-love. because that's the key. And I can say that with great authority because it's why I'm still here
Hmm.
doing the work that I'm doing.
Oh man, that just like unravels so many questions.
Right?
And it's so true with the whole self-love. Like I always think back to like how can I fill other people's cups up if my cup is empty? And you can't, right? And if you don't have that like love and trust in yourself, then how can you for other people, you know?
Mm.
It's just not, you have to come first, 100%.
And I say that to everyone, if we don't respect ourselves, how do we know how to give other people respect?
Hmm.
If we don't love ourselves unconditionally, how can we unconditionally love others? Right? If we're not loyal to ourselves, how can we be loyal to others? Right? We first have to cultivate that within us to know what it is to provide and share with others. So it really is, this journey is a journey of coming back to self. It's a journey of, removing all of the programming and the indoctrination that we have spent our lifetime moving through and coming back to the original self that we were born here as, right? We came in as love. That fear is learned. That pressurization of what we need to be, that's all learned. We know who we are as children. We know who we are. We're close to creator. We're close to that divine source. And we get pulled away from it as we grow up and we try and conform. And I'm the first one to admit I was trying to conform in a world that was not intended for me. The world for me is the unseen. Those that we can't make people see unless they're ready.
Hmm.
And that world has been where I've found myself again. And that's the world that I try to help others come into connection with, because that world is where we came from. That world is where we're going back to, right? This interconnectedness with Source, this interconnectedness with those who are here to help guide us and protect us through this realm. For me, the study of shamanism and becoming a shamanic practitioner, it opened up a whole new understanding of the world that I was already trying to navigate. And once I was able to settle into this is okay, this is accepted, this is what's been going on for hundreds of years, it changed the way I showed up in this realm, not only for myself, but for others, if that makes sense.
And I find it interesting too that once you see these unseen things, you don't look at life the same. Like I've had my moments of, um, not often, but like a small handful of moments where I would astral travel to God knows where. And then you come back and you're like, holy shit, where are we living? And you can't go back to what you thought you knew after you've experienced these things because it just shows you that there is so much more out there than, like I said earlier, than just this reality that's in front of us. Yeah.
Once you know, you can't unknow.
Hmm.
Once you step on this path and you start learning, there's no putting that head in the sand. You must keep going.
Hmm.
At my first sacred fire, that I was invited into, at the end of the sacred fire, my mentor was going around and thanking everyone for having attended and brought to fire what they did. And when she got to me, you could see she was struggling with saying my name. And the only thing she could come out with was, "Thank you for coming, Alice." And in that moment, I thought, Alice, who the is Alice? And I looked to my friend who was to the left of me, and she had the most perplexed look on her face. And I thought, okay, this is a message from Spirit. It's got to be something. And as I walked away from that fire, I heard, you're Alice. You have gone down that tunnel, and there's no other way but forward. We think about Alice's journey, right? And how she goes big and she shrinks and she maneuvers through. That was me. It was like there was no going back to who I thought I knew I was prior to that moment. And the next day, she wrote me and she said, I am so sorry. I could see by the look on your face, you had no idea what was going on. And she, when I looked around, there were two other shamans to her right, and they were kind of Cheshire catting it with these smiles on their faces. And she said, I know you noticed that they were smiling because they had been through this experience before. They knew what was going on. I knew you didn't. And she said, all I can tell you is when I went to say your name, Spirit said, no, she's not that person anymore.
Mm.
She has transformed. And that's where Alice came in. So, here I am. So it's kind of like I'm ready for the journey. I am in the tunnel, which is where we go when we journey, and I'm there and I'm ready for it. I may not have all the answers, but I don't need them. I got them giving me the answers that need to come through.
Mhm.
And when we can move through life with such a belief system, a trust, it changes how we show up for everyone around us. And they recognize that. Whether they understand it, whether they know it, something inside of them recognizes it. And it's I can't imagine being any other way.
Mhm. So going back to what you were talking about, imagination and the whole stop daydreaming and all that sort of stuff, my understanding is that that's where it all begins with connecting to our team or source, whatever you want to call it, the imagination. So what do you have to say on that topic about how it's like as kids, we're at our most purest, most connected, I think. And then we have people who, like our parents or whoever that try to, or even teachers at school, stop daydreaming, pay attention or whatever. So what do you have to say to that with like just imagination in general?
So, it was some time ago, and it would have been, obviously during the period that I was apprenticing, where it became very apparent to me that the imagination was actually the bridge to our intuition. That if we could get ourselves back to that childlike imagination that we once didn't have to work at, it was innate within us. If we could get back to that and trust it, then the bridge that would act as the catalyst or the bridge to the intuition. It was almost like one becomes the next. And when we move into that space of intuition and we're really moving through life engaged and listening and moving with the guidance, we then recognize we've been here before, right? We've been in this space before, and it brings us back to our childhood where we didn't resist, we didn't force the imagination, we moved into it and we allowed it to feed our joy and feed our days, right? I'm sure I was kept very busy on my own as a young child, but everything that I was doing on my own became problematic when I was moved into the school system,
Mm.
right? because I wasn't paying attention or I wasn't listening and I was daydreaming, and the system didn't want that.
Mhm.
They wanted adherence. And I was, it was something that was forced out of me for sure so that I could comply and maneuver through this life that was expected of me. And I've come back full circle, right? I'm back to the point where I began, where my imagination is what has opened all these realms for me. It's it's one and the same. And I always say to those that I'm sitting with, your imagination, once we can tap into that, it'll be that bridge to your intuition. It brings you into those realms of the unseen that we can't, most of us can't see in this reality, in what we call ordinary reality from a shamanistic point. Um, but it brings us to those, and that is probably the biggest resistance I find in people when they come out of journeying or they come out of a session. It's, can I believe what I just went through to be true? And that's the basis of this work, is that whatever you move through, you trust that it is absolutely done. It's a it's a process to get to that point, but once you're there, it becomes your way of life.
Mhm.
I move through my days with guidance, with interaction, communication with my team. Um, I'm going to be 55 this year, and so far they've not steered me wrong.
Mm.
So when I look at that, even when they come up with these ideas of quit your 27-year law career, and I look at the pros and the cons, the factor that pushed me into this was they haven't led me astray so far. I've trusted them to this point. Let's keep trusting.
The imagination being the bridge to intuition is interesting because I find, and I fall into this too, that nowadays, done by design, there are so many distractions to keep us disconnected from our imagination so that we don't connect back to source and learn who we truly are.
I've been lucky because throughout my journey, I have naturally been guided away from the distractions.
Mm.
So when my oldest son was born 23 years ago, from the moment that young one came out of the womb, he was busy. And I found myself being pulled away from television. So I haven't watched television since uh, since 2003, January of 2003. So it's 23 years. I gave up watching news broadcasting, which was very difficult for me because I was, needed to know what was going on in 2008. I gave up broadcast radio in 2013 when I started on my shamanic journey. Those were the biggest three distractions that my guides pulled me away from. And I see now today that was done strategically by them so that I could be pulled from the programming, pulled from the indoctrination, pulled from the lies,
Mm.
and be able to sit in the capacity to discern what was going on around me. It's, you know, today we do have so many things that are distracting us, and those are all done by design.
Yeah.
They've been brought in to keep us from knowing our true innate soul self. And it's hard to, some people see it as yourself, they can acknowledge it, And some people have a hard time seeing it as the intention that it is. The more we can be distracted, the less likely we're going to find out who we really are.
Yeah. And I've even for my personal self lately, that's been a huge, huge struggle where I find that I've really fallen off of my path. I just like I feel more lost and confused and just like I don't know what to do with myself. So last night with like yesterday being a really tough day, I I still have like my social media accounts, but I deleted everything off of my phone. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know who I am. This is ridiculous. Like it, I mean, you sit there and you scroll through these videos and yeah, they're funny or they're interesting and this and that, but at the end of the day, what does that serve you? Nothing. Because at the end of the day, I'm left with a headache and feeling tired because I'm, on my phone the whole time. And I know that that's like many people out there. And oh, it's just so crazy. So I don't know. I'm glad that I'm like aware of it where before like I was aware of it but kept doing it, but now I'm to the point where I'm like I'm fucking fed up. I can't do this anymore and I'm not doing it anymore. I'll see how long I stay off of it. I mean, I'll need it to post my episodes, but other than that, like I don't want to be a part of it because it truly it I don't know, you what's the word I'm looking for? Like you feel empty at the end of the day from scrolling for like 3, 4 hours through these like random videos or posts or whatever, right?
Yeah, and it really is to find that balance. You know, I walk between worlds. I walk between this world and I walk between the unseen world. And it's finding that balance and how you maneuver through and still remain grounded,
Hmm.
right? The biggest challenge is the awareness, is having the awareness of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how it is impacting you, right? When we start to have that awareness, we then start to pay attention to what's transpiring around us. And as we pay attention, we then, and it's a process, it takes time, but it's the beginning. Awareness is the beginning. And eventually we can sit back and be the observer. So I'm now in that space where I can observe everything that's going on, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. But there is that knowing and that trust deep within my soul that what is going on needs to. So I hold space in that vibration of love for whatever needs to be moved through can be done so as quickly as possible. Because as humans, we have sadly come to understand that we learn through suffering.
Hmm.
And that suffering that we're watching out there only puts us in that space of more suffering. But when you can understand that we learn through that suffering and we can indeed use that as the catalyst to gain knowledge and wisdom, we then have the capacity and the ability to trust that everything is taking place for a reason. I may not know the reason, and if I did, I may not like it, but that's not for me to be concerned about.
Yeah.
My concern is to hold that space of unconditional love so that we can all maneuver through this together. And we're all in different boats, but we're kind of on the same sea, right? We're maneuvering through the waves, some of us in dinghies, some of us in yachts, but we're all maneuvering through something.
Mhm.
And if we use that knowing that it has to transpire and step away from the emotional attachment to it and observe. It allows us to move through this, specifically this time, which is unprecedented. It allows us to move through this time in peace, right? In peace and in that knowing that this is what has to transpire. It doesn't need to transpire for me to get it, but it does for someone to step into the knowing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, also going back when you said when your brother was diagnosed, can I ask what your brother was diagnosed with?
So, my brother Jared was diagnosed with T mantle cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Okay. I was wondering if there was like a connection with his and yours and, how you guys were kind of connected.
Yeah, it's interesting because in speaking to one person, they have said that it's kind of distantly connected. So mine was stage 3 melanoma. He was stage 4 when he was diagnosed. So they're not right connected, but I understand that distantly
Hmm.
they are. How that is, I don't really know. When I look back at that piece of it, he was diagnosed 3 years less a day to my diagnosis.
Right.
And we have a lot of those pieces, that less a day. I haven't yet figured out what that means, but it means something important, and that will come when that time is right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it wasn't directly related, but
So you were saying that you weren't understanding the messages that were coming through, which I find that a lot of us tend to, like, even for myself, if I get, or I think I get some sort of like numbers are a really big thing for me lately, and they either I don't know how to say it, like add up to like one whole number, so instead of like 59, it's 60, or I don't know how that makes sense, but every time, and especially, going back to social media, being on Instagram, if I would like posts, it always seemed like I was that something hundredth person to click on it, or the 70th person, like always these like full even numbers. Um, Anyway, so with like understanding the messages coming through, what can you say to that? Because there is always that bit of doubt, which we've kind of touched on earlier, where it's like, well, I don't know. I did ask for help in this, that, and the other, and then this happened, but oh, I don't know. There's always that kind of doubt in our head whether we've actually been or have been communicating with our team or spirit, or if it's just like a quote unquote coincidence, because I don't believe in coincidences. So, yeah, what can you say on that?
here's the piece. Most of us, when the messages come in, we check them with our ego, right? With our ego mind. The ego is always going to stop us from believing, right? Because the ego keeps us in the trauma drama cycle. It looks at our situations in life from a standpoint of keeping us safe. So if the ego can tell us not to believe the message that's coming in, then we know how to maneuver otherwise. When messages come in, we really, especially until we get used to them coming in, we want to kind of connect in with our heart and feel, does that resonate as truth for me? One of the big things that has come up over the years that I've been working with people is when a message comes in and you hear it in your head, how do you know that's not you making that up or if it's a message? And I always say, if it's got trauma or drama or emotion attached to it, that's you. If it comes in, it's quick, it has no no emotion, and it is a directive, that's a message, right? The minute the emotion gets attached to it, that's us. And, when we first start hearing the messages, it does sound like our own voice because that's the voice that we understand inside our head. So learning how to, acknowledge, okay, that was direct, that had no emotion, that's a message. Or you're replaying something in your mind and you get emotional to it, or it's trauma drama. That's not a message, if that makes sense, right? So you're driving down the road, you're following your map, your GPS, and you hear go left. Your logical mind will say, no, don't go left. You're following the map. But that message comes in so clear and so concise, you follow it. And as you turn down that left, you notice something you needed to see, right? So it takes time and it takes effort and work to build that communication skills with our guidance team. And there's different ways they can come in, right? So it's getting to understand the different clair senses that come in. But mostly people will start with this voice in the head. What does that mean? Does that help?
Yeah. And the other word that came to me was discernment too. So for me, when I get messages, I don't hear it. It's more of like a knowing. And so for me, I feel I have to really rely on my discernment to be like, hey, was that me or was that them giving me something? Or it'll
Right.
be, but when you say it's like quick and concise, it's so fleeting, like in a blink of an eye or faster. And sometimes it goes completely missed and I won't realize it till after like, oh shit, yeah, that came through. I should have paid attention to that kind of thing, right? But yeah, I find that if you're able to like hone in on your discernment and decipher, like you said, if it comes from ego, like yourself, or if it's from a message, that's important. And that piece has helped me when I do catch the messages to be like, okay, yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. You
Right.
know, yeah,
Yeah, and that really is the piece, right? It's the quickness. Like it comes in so fast, you don't have time to dialogue it. It's like, okay. And the more and I share this, the more you don't listen and something happens, the more you learn to listen.
yeah,
We learn through failure, right? And I still do it. I'll run out of the house and I'll hear grab your umbrella. Well, no, the weather network said it's going to be fine. And then you get caught in the rain. It's like, aha, right? It's that quick and that fleeting
mhm,
is there's no dialogue, there's no time to refute it. It's done. It's there. And discernment, right? Like discernment is so key.
mhm,
Oftentimes, if a message comes in, we might find that we end up with goosebumps, right? Those goosebumps, we call them truth bumps in my line of work. And that truth has a vibration, it has an energy. So our body picks up on it. So sometimes when that message comes in, you might get a bit of shivers or you might get a bit of goosebumps. It's the awareness, right? Everything begins with the awareness, paying attention to what's going on and just learning to discern and trust. And it's really going to be a journey of failing, really, quite honestly, not listening and suffering the consequences of not listening. That's the easiest catalyst to get us to listen, if that registers.
and unfortunately, sometimes the failing can be pretty traumatic. I mean, not to laugh about it because it's not funny, but I don't know, in the sense of like a team trying to tell someone to slow down and they're just go, 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 go. And then they're slow down. You got to slow down. You got to slow down. And suddenly they, I don't know, trip and fall and like break their leg or get into a fender bender, not to take this into such like extreme negatives, but it's true that the more we don't listen, the more of a slap in the face the messages or the consequence, you know?
Yeah, if I look back to my marriage to my narcissistic ex, there were many, many messages to leave. There were many red flags, but I didn't. And I firmly believe that the diagnosis was okay. So we're going to give you melanoma because that's going to make you pay attention.
Mhm.
That's going to make you stop. And that's exactly what it did. It was I've ignored, ignored, ignored. Boom. Now what are you going to do? Who are you going to save?
Yeah.
Right? Who are you going to save now? And it was a big smack in the head, but it was the smack in the head I needed, especially in that time period.
Mhm.
Right? It was who are you going to save this time? Because if you're not saving yourself, who knows what the consequences would have been.
And I think that's an important thing to touch on too, is how emotions store in our body or how our unresolved traumas store within our body and show up in the physical. Um, I do find that there is quite a gap, which is probably a conversation for another day, but within our healthcare system where it's the, I don't know, the emotional aspect of our pains or the diseases that we come across or illnesses, they're just not, I don't know how to word it. Like it's sometimes I want to just talk to people and ask them like, like, what was your relationship like with your mother or your father? Um, Based on the physical issues that they're feeling when there's no history of any sort of, like, oh, as a kid, I tripped and fell and smashed my shoulder or something like that. You know what I mean? And I find that that's an important thing to talk about. And I think that it's slowly more and more coming to the surface where people are accepting it. But at the same time, there's a lot of pushback with, well, no, it's not an ancestral thing. I just slipped and hurt my knee. It's like, but why did you slip and hurt your knee? Or you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when in my trainings, I was taught that the emotion is the catalyst for our dis-ease, which is a body not at ease. So we have, the energy bodies, and that emotion is on the very outside energy body. And as that emotion doesn't get resolved, the final symptom of that emotion is a physical ailment. It's a physical disease. So when I think back to my own diagnosis, it was anger that was in my body. And that anger was not resolved, and it became that malignant tumor.
Mhm.
When we have emotions come into the body, it automatically puts the body off of homeostasis, right? Which is that balanced state. And the longer it takes us to resolve that emotion, the more time it's left to build up and become a physical ailment. There is becoming more and more this understanding that there's a correlation between the two.
Mhm.
And that correlation is people are starting to sense that there's more at play than what they've been told, right? When we look at, you know, ancestral or, things that have happened through our lineage, you will find that it will run the gamut, say, between along the women. And in my line of work, I have um, the honor of sitting with people and being able to pull the lineages pieces apart to bring it back to what it is that they're moving through in the time.
Mm.
So it's basically connecting the dots, right? How of the emotions that have traveled through from, grandmother to daughter to child in the womb, how has that come forward? And it's really about, for me, I don't work alone. And that's the beauty of this work is as much as I have wisdom and knowledge within my own noggin, I also have a team who are helping me move through and work with people to find out what that root cause is. What is it that's transpiring throughout the genes, throughout the lineage, and sometimes we're the one where it starts. How do we get to that root? How do we define it? How do we remove it and learn how to prevent it from coming back,
Mhm.
if that makes sense, right? It's a longer drawn out explanation than what I've brought forward.
Mm.
But if we can start to open our mind to the fact that any emotion aside from love has a lower vibration. And when we look at everything in this world as energy, as vibration, if we are housing low vibration within our body, we've got to add higher vibrations to shift that, if that makes sense. And one of the highest is love. Being able to put love into the body and true love, not just saying it, not just think it has to be intentional, true love into the body. And that can raise our own vibrations to shift out the negative energy that's there. And it helps to have someone who is practiced in that work to help move us through as a guide,
Mhm.
if that resonates.
Yeah, yeah.
I love my work, right? No 2 days are ever the same.
Mhm.
No two people are the same. No two journeys I take with them are the same. But at the end of the day, people are healing.
Mhm.
People are moving into wholeness. And that's what we seek is the wholeness of who we are when we started.
Mhm.
That gets pulled out of us and indoctrinated out of us.
Yeah.
It's rediscovering us, home, who we are.
Mhm.
That really can shift, and we have to look to not not everybody's journey will look like mine.
Mhm.
Not everybody's journey will have the positive outcome that I was able to attain. And that's not for me to know. And that's not for me to intend that that's what we're going to do. It's let's see what we need to do to help you move through. I'm here as an assist. I can't do the work for anyone.
Yeah.
I can show them the the way, I can show them what worked for me. I can give them the guidance that's coming in, but the work is within the self.
Mhm.
And that I think that's the piece that we all have to understand is no one can save us. That's internal work.
And I do think that that is becoming pretty important nowadays where people are realizing that it's not a one quick fix situation, that they do have to put in the work. And even when I talk to some people, like the grass is just so much greener on the other side. Life is just so much better once you've moved through whatever it is you have to move through and then you get there. Like you will survive through it. It may be crappy at times, but you will make it through and you're going to be okay. And I'm finding that more and more people are open to finally facing their crap, their traumas, whatever you want to call it, and taking those appropriate steps to move through that so that they can heal and continue on. It's but then on the other side of that, I see people who completely ignore, are in denial or something about their traumas, and they just, I don't know, it breaks my heart with how they're choosing to live their life because they're too afraid to step into healing and like moving away from that. And I mean, it is what it is. It's their journey. They're gonna learn these lessons or not when they're ready to, right? There's nothing that we can do about that. But it's just, yeah, I have my moments where I just want to shake them by the shoulders and be like, just do it. You won't regret it. But again, we can't, right? It's up to them.
And that's the piece, it's if it has taken us years to get to a body that's in dis-ease, it is not going to be a week's worth of intentional thoughts. That's not how it works.
Mhm.
We have to be prepared to put in the time because whatever it has taken us to get to that point, it's going to take an equal amount of work to move from that point. And it's intentional. We've lived in a society where it's band-aiding, right? A pill will make you feel better, but it causes something else. This work is getting to the root of it. So let's not band-aid it. Let's actually pull that friggin' band-aid off and see what's underneath. You know, yeah, some days it's gonna feel joyous and it's gonna feel like butter and it's gonna taste like cotton candy when you leave my table. And some days it's not gonna.
Mhm.
Some days it's gonna feel like you want to puke your brains out. That is the process. You know, it's not all light and unicorns and sugary candies. Some of it is down, it's dirty, it's gritty, it's trudging through the muck, but you don't have to do it alone.
Mhm.
I'm there to help guide people through that muck because I had to bring myself through that muck.
Mhm.
There was also, people who were there guiding me. So it's being there for others in a capacity where I'm not going to sympathize for you because I'm not going to give you the right to stay in victimhood. I'm going to empathize with you. I'm going to meet you at a level that you need me to meet you to encourage you to rise, to encourage you to move out of that victimhood and into that space of leveling up to where you need to be to move yourself out of whatever circumstance you're in, out of whatever dis-ease your body is moving through. I'm happy to guide.
Mhm.
The work can't be done by me.
Yeah.
It's a different way of understanding the relationship between us, our emotions, the unseen realms, and the potential that is out there in the quantum and the metaphysics for us to tap into.
Mhm.
I was working in the metaphysical realm before science even acknowledged it as a science. You know, it's a knowing, it's a trust. It's a once they prove it to you, you can't question it.
Mhm.
You can, but it certainly won't work to your advantage. You're best to work along with them. And it's a whole different way of being. It's you show up differently in the world, and the world looks different to you than it does to many others. And that doesn't make me special. It doesn't put me on a platform. What it does is it puts me ahead of the journey of others
Mhm.
to help guide, to help be that intentional light beam to say, hey, there's another way. Let's give that a shot, right? If I can move myself through the depths of the journeys I've had to move through, culminated on top of each other for years, I've got the street cred. I've moved through it. I can show you the equation, but you've got to do the math.
Mhm.
You've got to do the figuring it out. You've got to do the doing. But I'm happy to help.
Yeah. We need more authentic people like you in this world doing this work because, especially nowadays, there has been such an increase in like dark work where people are essentially just trying to monetize off of other people's traumas, and I know that discernment comes into play there where, you meet someone, you get that feeling, you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know about this person, so I'm gonna stay away kind of thing. And I mean, not everybody is tuned in to their discernment, so sometimes they don't pick that up. And uh, yeah, sometimes there's this like, it seems like this spell is cast over their eyes. We're just like, oh, this person, da da da, kind of thing. And not that it's like a scary thought, but it's a little unsettling that those who want to do the work authentically, s- I wouldn't say struggle, but like have to battle with those who are not authentically doing the work, like coming from a good place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was a struggle for me for some time, until I was able to rationalize that in order for people to know who I am, they have to first learn who somebody isn't who they say they are.
Hmm.
There's lots of dark magic out there. There's lots of people doing this work. It's some of them knowingly, some of them unknowingly. But again, that falls back into discernment. If you're doing the work and you haven't, you know, done the background on who you're working with, it can lead you down wrong paths. And what really has offered me the understanding of why that's out there is we need to experience the dark in order to know the light,
Hmm.
right? Um, I once worked with a gentleman in the city in London, and upon meeting me, he said, I don't have to see certifications from you. I know who you are.
Mm.
And he just, he had spent a lifetime with different practitioners, and he said, you can feel who you are. I was always um, trained by my shamanic mentor that it was not up to me to tell people who I was. It was for them to discover that, who they needed to see in me at the time that they're working with me. You know, a lion doesn't have to tell anybody they're a lion, it's felt. And, you know, when we really start, nobody doing this work, any kind of this work, should be either placing themselves on pedestals or allowing others to place them on pedestals. When the ego is involved, it's a different energy, right? This work has to be done from the heart. And if we open up simply that sense, we can feel who people are. It's that knowing, you know, like that belly rumble that you get when you step into a room and something feels off, right? We were always told to listen to our gut, but nobody defined what the gut meant,
Mhm.
right? Often the gut is a warning sign to say, whoop, pay attention. And one of the things that I tell the people that I work with is if you have stepped into working with a practitioner and something doesn't feel right, walk away. The minute we lay ourselves on that table and we allow them to open up into our soul, our energetic body is in their command.
Mhm.
That is more important than our bank accounts. And if you would not give a stranger your bank card with your PIN number, you should not be giving people access to your soul.
Yeah.
Needs to be held in that high regard so that we aren't just, oh, I made this appointment, I've paid for it. Walk away.
Mhm.
If it doesn't feel right, it isn't. If that gut is going, pay attention. It's our warning sign. It's telling us that something is off. When we start to understand that the soul's only way of communication with us is through our body, it then allows us to start paying deeper attention to what our body's trying to tell us, right? It's deciphering the messages that are coming in, learning how to become aware of our own energy without interference from anyone else, then allows us to feel the different energies that are coming at us. You know, lots of people think if people are talking spiritual, they're coming from, you know, the love and light side. Not so. Everything has duality. So we have to be able to discern what feels like, oh, that's the right, and what feels like, oh, that's wrong.
Mhm.
Right? It all comes back to awareness. When we spend that time to love ourselves, to move ourselves into a place of wholeness, it opens up all different capacities to sense what's going on around us. It's the key. It truly is the key. And you know, it's watching and not interfering because I've had opportunity where I have known where people were stepping into, but knowing that I don't have the right to interfere um, with their journey, letting them move through it, watching them, and then knowing when they've returned
Mhm.
and the lesson they've learned. And some don't learn the lesson, but when the ones that do, it sure is like it's like gold in my soul, right? Being able to, it's all about free will
Yeah.
and honoring it. And I've learned how to do that with some of the greatest loves of my life. is allowing free will and acknowledging and understanding that everyone has a journey. And I'm not here to interfere. I'm just here to help and assist when they're ready.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. One other question that I had going back to your brother when he was asking for your help to cross, from the time that those messages were coming through until your psychopumping, was he earthbound that whole time? Yeah. And he stuck with you, I'm guessing, before.
No, he actually spent time with my shamanic mentor.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
Mhm. Very interesting. So he passed January 8th of 2010, and I stepped into Psychopomp in 2014.
Hmm.
And that time period, he actually spent the majority of that time with my mentor
Okay.
and, visiting family when he could. But it was actually her that he went to in the knowing, because he could see all, that I would eventually make my way there. So it was connections that had been made. When my brother first was diagnosed, my eldest sister had a friend who was an angel whisperer, angel worker, and she put this person in contact with my brother. And then when I was diagnosed, my sister reached out to the same person, and she actually worked on me the day I came home from surgery. She came to my home and did a healing on me. And it was her connection that put me in contact with my shamanic mentor.
Okay.
My brother, being able to see the path, knew that I would eventually make my way to my mentor. And she spent some time trying to, cajole me into doing this psychopomp. I remember her first time she brought it up. It's like, yeah, I don't want to work with dead people. I'm good. I don't want to work with dead people. And, she would back off. And then she'd come back. So, are you thinking that maybe you'd like to do psychopomp? And it was the minute I said yes, we like jumped right into it. And I had the first occasion of having working alongside her, helping my brother cross in 2014. So it was around December of 2014 that we did that. And then subsequently, I helped my mom in 2018, and I helped my dad in 2021. Um, and I've helped lots of other wandering or lost souls throughout the years. But having three very instrumental people in my life to be able to help them cross in three very different ways. Um, those ecstatic lessons you don't forget,
Mhm.
right? Those pieces of, we learn in three ways. We learn through it being handed down, through webinars, workshops, reading, or ecstatically. And by far the most wisdom making way is through ecstatic. And that has been probably 90% of my journey. For 4 years, my mentor was, taught me everything she could. Um, and even when I resisted, she still found a way to get by that resistance. But most of what I do comes from my own experiences, and working with my team working with other people's teams, and creating this space to invite the helper spirits and allies in to help us move through healing work. It's been fascinating, and I consider myself incredibly honored to be able to do this work and have the connection with the unseens that I do.
Hmm.
It's but I put that I worked hard, and I'm at that point now where I can say, yeah, I worked hard for this. I dedicated a lot of time, I dedicated a lot of energy, and I'm reaping the rewards of life. You know, I'm still here raising my boys. I'm still here for them. When the medical system told me I had a year to five, most likely a year, you know, something has to be said for that, right? That where there's, my dad always said, where there's life, there's hope.
Yeah.
And there's a will, there's a way. And I feel like I have really allowed myself to step into that way and be here to not only for me, first and foremost for me, but for others. And it's been an incredible journey so far.
Mm.
Can't wait to see where it goes. You
Yeah.
know, the world is opening up in ways we could never have expected. And I get it now. I get now why my journey has been so trial and tribulation full, but it's also been very, very rich in lessons and wisdom and medicines. And I'm here for it.
So, with that said, what message would you share with the collective or with the people who are listening to this?
Mm.
That's kind of a loaded question in itself, but
Yeah, you know what? I have to bring it back to two main concepts. Open up your imagination. Let that be the bridge that teaches you about your intuition. And all the while, be offering yourself unconditional love. This is a journey. There is no perfection to this. It's a practice. We are here to learn. We are here to gain wisdom. And the greatest subject we'll ever work with is ourselves.
Mm. I love that. That's so good. If people want to look you up or connect with you, how can they find you?
Sure. So my website is Beyond the Purple Door. I am in Lucan, Ontario. You will find me on Instagram under Purple Reiki Girl or the Beyond the Purple Door HD. And you'll also find me on Facebook under Beyond the Purple Door.
Perfect.
I'm so looking forward to meeting those who are guided in this direction. It will be an honor to serve.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for sitting down with me.